Welcome back to the Icecrown Raid Guide. My name is Darksend, and in this video I will be covering our strategy for the 25-man version of the Lich King encounter. If you'd like more information, or would like to learn more about downloading this movie, click more info on the movie information box on YouTube to head directly to TankSpot. Also, be sure to subscribe by clicking the subscribe button to the right to be automatically notified as we release new movies. Finally, TankSpot donors can download all of these movies in high definition directly from our servers. Click the second link in the movie information box to learn more about this service. This fight consists of 3 main phases, with 2 transitional phases occurring at 70 and 40%. We used 2 tanks, and our healers were 2 paladins, a druid, a shaman, and 2 priests, 1 discipline and 1 holy. The most important thing about phase 1 is how you handle the necrotic plague. By using this strategy, we never got a 3rd shambling. You completely ignore the ghouls and the shamblings and focus all DPS on Lich King to push him as fast as possible to 70%. The ghouls will die either to normal melee AoEs such as Whirlwind, or as fodder for the off-tank stacking up the plague. Our off-tank was a Death Knight, and was death gripping the shamblers to himself. But if you did not have a Death Knight tank, make sure he gets MD'd to avoid shockwaving the raid while positioning. We assigned our hunters to watch for enrages, and having 2 hunters is part of what makes this strategy work as well as it does. Assign 1 to the first one, and 1 to the second one. A rogue with anesthetic poison will work as well, but they need to be careful of shockwave, and it's not as efficient. Start with the entire raid almost stacked on Lich King, with the shambling being tanked away. Once 2 people successfully get a plague on the shambling, we had all the new ones get ran out of the raid and get dispelled, as the plague will be removed completely if no one is within 5 yards at the time of the dispel. Have the off-tank grab ghouls only until the second shambling spawns, to help build up the stack. Once the second one does spawn, however, you want to keep all ghouls as far away from the off-tank position as possible. This will ensure the plague will bounce back and forth only between the 2 shamblers. If DPS is good enough, they will die by killing themselves just before 70% or just after 70%. To deal with Infest, we had our Discipline Priest shielding as many people as possible. We then had the Druid and the Shaman topping up the melee, and a Holy Priest topping up the ranged. The stacking damage buff the Lich King gains when the Plague jumps is much scarier than a 10-man. I needed to start using cooldowns as early as 15 stacks, and they got really scary around 20. At 72%, have your raid move to the edge and be ready for the transition phase. Make sure to dispel the off-tank before he runs back in to remove the disease that killed the last shambler. Diseases will no longer happen for the rest of the fight once that one is removed. Spreading out is very important for this phase, both to help mitigate the Frost Orb's AoE and the pain and suffering. The main tank should be getting the first Raging Spirit, but the off-tank needs to get the next 2. This is so that the main tank is clean when it comes time to pick the Lich King back up. If possible, try to face them into the middle, so melee do not have to worry about getting silenced, or taking that damage. It also makes it easier if a melee gets the next Raging Spirit to have a clean spot to drop it off at. Assign 2 people to the orbs, and after a minute when Lich King quakes, pay attention to them. You don't want to run into any of them that aren't dead yet and get thrown 90 yards off the platform. I was always given a cooldown as we were running back in, usually a Guardian Spirit. It is very silly to wipe here because your tank just gets 1 shot running back in. There will likely be 2 Raging Spirits still up, although 1 will probably be almost dead at this point. Focus on them until the Valkyries come up. In 25 men, there are 3 of them, so make sure to assign redundant slows to each one of them in case the slower gets picked up. Ideally, depending on how good or bad you are with the file, the tank should be dead center of the platform, with the entire raid stacked up right behind him. The reason you do this is because the Valkyries will always fly to the nearest edge. By controlling where you stand, you can ensure they all fly together. which not only helps a great deal as far as damage goes, allowing melee to cleave them, but it also ensures that AoE slows such as Piercing Howl or Desecration will always be able to hit all three of them. Phase 2 is all about properly handling defiles and making sure the Valkyries are slowed. The person getting targeted by defile is rarely the reason it will grow. What normally happens is, the people around them don't know which way they're going to run, so instead of running away, they run with them for a few steps. And by then it's too late and it's already grown at least a tick. Because of this, we used the general strategy of teleporter to throne, as far as positions for dropping defiles. A defile in the middle could have devastating results if a Valkyrie doesn't get slowed because the person's picked up, or if a stunner is picked up. Always be watching the cooldown, or have someone call out the cooldown for defile, and have the raid be pre-moving. As long as a Valkyrie is not about to spawn, there is no reason people should be anywhere near the middle when the cooldown of defile ends. Should a raid healer get picked up, or people move the wrong way around defile and get separated from raid healers, Infest can start to tick rather hard. If this starts happening, make sure people use health stones. Because of its mechanic, the longer it ticks, the harder it is to remove. We decided using a taunt rotation for Soul Reaper would just make things much easier in the long run. It also has the added benefit of letting you save cooldowns, say, in case a tank healer gets picked up, instead of being forced to use them at specific times, and then not having them when you actually need them. Furthermore, more often than not, Soul Reaper will line up with Defile. This can be very disastrous if you get separated from your healers. At around 42%, start watching the cooldown on Valkyries. Stop all DPS until the next one comes out, and as soon as they die, push immediately. It is true that should the people get picked up, they will safely be dropped on the now raised platform, but it is also true that even standing on the very edge, you will take ticks of Remorseless Winter. This, combined with any pain and suffering ticks or orb splashes, just makes it safer to wait. Everyone should be as close to the edge as possible before pushing, because there is a delay in the platform coming back up. Again, just like the previous transition phase, make sure to stay spread out to avoid pain and suffering stacking too high, and splashes from the orb. This is the optimal time for Bloodlust or Heroism, because this time around, there will be 4 Raging Spirits instead of just 3. We have the off-tank get the 1st, 3rd, and 4th, while the main tank picks the 2nd one up. Ideally, the first 2 should be dead before the transition ends, with the 3rd one at about 75%. The 4th one will always spawn after the transition phase ends. The tank really needs help to pick this one up, as they'll almost definitely be silenced.